We're looking here at a small collection of mid-19th century juvenile books, American, in publishers' cloth bindings. Here, this spine is very nicely gilt, pictorial, and the covers are stamped in blind. The title page is a wood engraving signed down here in the corner by the artist in the block. 1861, it's a Civil War era imprint. It's clean, tight, and sound as issued. There are some illustrations in it like so, and it's in relatively good condition. This book here has a very attractive large gilt pictorial central stamp of a mother with her child by a gas light. It's decoratively embossed in blind. There are wood engravings, again signed by the artist in the block. We've got, it begins with an ABC and then continues with a series of small wood engraved images for the primer part. It's got other small images within it. It's sound and tight. This attractive, decoratively blind stamped book has a nice pictorial ornate gilt spine, again with a child and a mother. Here we're looking at, this is the Peddler of Dust Sticks. Again, the plate is signed by the artist. It's 1857. Billings is the artist. The book is heavily soiled, indicating it's been looked at and handled quite a bit. And it's still sound and tight, however. Juveniles of this era are often have all kinds of condition issues, given that the intended audience was children. Here we see, again, a splendid little gilt pictorial spine with winged cherubs and a bird. A nice urn with flowers. It has, again, signed by Howland, the artist, Hymns for Infant Minds. It's 1850, and here we see there are these rather primitive wood engravings throughout, simplistic, simple lines, and that book is sound and tight. Here is a very ornately blind stamped book with a gilt spine. This kind of publisher's cloth is a whole era of book production that lasted roughly 30 years or so in this type of embossed and gilt stamped binding. It extends a little bit on either side of the parameters, but prior to this, the covers on children's books and most books were actually just plain paper, and shortly after this they give way to other types of cloth and lithographed bindings, leather bindings, and so on. But this type of ornate decorative gilt cloth book with illustrations for children is very much of the mid-30s up through around the 1870 or so. And so here again we see a series of these full-page wood engravings throughout, line drawings, and they're signed by the artist as well. And here we get to the title page, 1866, just after the conclusion of the Civil War. What's interesting is all of these images instead of a tissue guard, they're faced with a piece of blank paper that the publisher has put in to protect the text from offsetting. And it's unusual to see wood engravings faced by text paper. Almost always it's tissue guards. Here's a book that clearly shows signs of handling and age, but it's 1850. The text, here's a nice engraved title page. That's half title, actually. Oh, actually, no. Yeah, that's a half title right there. And some full-page illustrations throughout, heavy soiling and spotting. And then we've got this This is more of an earlier kind of a plain cloth binding, 1842, and there says that there are 79 wood engravings within it, and there is indeed a profusion of them. Interesting. There's an emphasis upon sort of a level of violence not typically associated with juvenile books in the 21st century either. This page here is defective, but it's really primarily the illustrations, the wood engravings in here that are of interest to us. And the final book in this group, in this small collection, and this is an example of a later type of cloth binding where it becomes less of the pebble cloth that's embossed and more of a simple ruled binding. And this one is probably, right, 1870. See, by the late 60s, the cloth of the publishers begins to become often more plain, not always, or more highly gilt decorated. It's just an evolution of binding styles. Well, that's a very interesting one of a boy with a hoop, no doubt, to play a game with a stick. And so this collection of 10 mid-19th century American juveniles is available on my website, briandemambro.com.